Hello everybody, Simon Dixon here and welcome to episode 61 of Bank to the Future Live. Today we're returning back to an interview with a new company that we did a funding round for back in 2015, but we're going to be launching in the coming weeks on our secondary market, the SPV. And we did a shareholder update for all of the original investors that invested back in 2015, 2016, I believe it was. And it's been an incredible growth story. They're now, up to a couple of hundred in headcount, up to 3 million customers, and they've become one of the leading and established brands in our industry. When they first started, they were, launching a Bitcoin debit card at the time, around about 2015. It was extremely hard to spend your Bitcoin, and Bitcoin debit cards were a really great solution for the market to be able to go out there. And obviously the market's evolved a lot. They've been through lots of cycles, and they're now more of a crypto debit card as well as traditional fiat on-ramping and the ability to have payments and banking services as well. So we're really happy to have Georgy, who's the Vice President of and in charge of partnerships at Wirex. And today we're just going to ask a few questions and we'll take your audience participation as well. So remember, if you'd like to ask a question here on the live, we will be sharing this recording. But if you're here on the live, then use hashtag BFLive on Twitter. And also you can use the live chat on YouTube. We've got Famila moderating from our investor relations team. And she's always on the front line getting your questions. So she's a user of Wyrex as well. So we'll take as many questions as we can find. So firstly, Georgy, thank you very much for being here with us today.
It's a pleasure.
So we did the shareholder update yesterday, and you kindly agreed to come back and do something more for the entire community. So why don't you give a bit of background on why you co-founded Wyrex and what the story is?
Yeah, yesterday when we started talking, realized it was almost 4.5 years ago that we not started, that the deal happened, and it was almost as early days for us as for Bank to the Future, as yourselves guys, and it's been an amazing success story to watch as well. To see partners in the industry working alongside together. Yeah, back in the days, I knew nothing about the industry or blockchain or finance in general. I was actually working in freight aviation. So I was more familiar with the concept of airdrop by dropping cargo off the air in Antarctica, for example, rather than airdropping tokens on the blockchain. So it was the literal meaning of airdrop. But one of the co-founders, Dmitry, who is now co-CEO of the company, we used to study together at the business school in London. And probably about a year after graduating, he mentioned this new idea, and I started looking at it, reading 2 weeks, reading day and night, got fascinated by the potential prospects of the technology and just said, yeah, I mean, how can I not be in? Because the technology itself seemed to be quite groundbreaking. And yeah, we started from very, very humble beginnings, almost your classical story of 3 guys with a laptop. Not in a garage, but yes, not far from that either. And you're right, the first product was a very simple and basic, or as it may seem, simple and basic Bitcoin debit card, but there was quite a lot of technology in the back end even then. There's a lot more now. The debit card still remains the backbone of the product. It's now looking a lot slicker than it used to back in the days. But yeah, I still keep all the old cards as like a souvenir. Yeah, we started as a tool which allowed people who held cryptocurrency to instantly convert their Bitcoin into US dollar and go spend it with a card anywhere. So effectively, you could go and buy yourself a coffee or a beer, or pay your bill with the merchant or utility or whoever receiving dollars or whichever currency they work in. And in the background, it was actually converting your Bitcoin into fiat currency and allowed it to spend it instantly and with pretty low fees compared to, at the time, almost non-existent solutions on the market. Now there's quite a lot more, but it's still not straightforward. Like, try coming into Tesco and offering them to pay in Bitcoin, and it would be a strange conversation probably. But now it's a much more diverse offering. It's pretty much a neobank on the blockchain rails. So we combine the functionality of a traditional neobank with all the benefits that blockchain technology and cryptocurrency bring in. So it's effectively, it's a hybrid payment platform that allows you to manage and spend any currencies, regardless of whether it's dollar or pound or euro or Bitcoin or Argentinian peso. It doesn't matter. It's all currencies are equal, and we think that's the philosophy we want to bring, and so that you don't even have to worry which currency you are holding or spending. Just do it with as little friction as you possibly can.
Yeah, well, I've still got my original euro, dollar, and pound eCoin debit cards from back in the day. And then I've been sent a number of them since. And it's even gone to the point now where you can have an account if you're, obviously with regulatory side, it's very tricky to do global services like this. But bit by bit, I believe you can now actually get a SWIFT number. Could you help us understand a bit about like the different phases that you've had to go through in terms of products and some of the regulatory hurdles you've had to overcome to get there?
Well, if we start talking about regulatory hurdles, probably the hour we have is not going to be enough. But yeah, keeping it brief. In the beginning, it was just the cards and your blockchain wallet, Bitcoin wallet.
That was essential, just so people understand. You'd fire up the app, and then you'd send some Bitcoin in. That would then be, you'd hold it as Bitcoin, or you convert it to dollars, and then once it's converted to dollars, euros, or pounds, it then sits on the card, and then you just spend it like a normal prepaid debit card. Is that correct?
Yep, exactly. Just at the beginning, there was no app even. App came a bit later. Actually, it was the I think the A series on Bank to the Future allowed us to start thinking about getting the app, and then once we got the Series A from SBI, from the big Japanese investor, probably still the biggest in the space, that's when we had enough resources to start building the app, because it's a big thing. And now it's a lot more diverse than that. So now, let's take my example. I have a Wirex account with the Wirex cards, and I can top it up however I want. I can link my ordinary bank card, say from Lloyd's or from Barclays in the UK. I can top it up either with the card directly, linking the card, or sending the instant fast transfer. So essentially the top up is free and instant for me, whichever way I go. And then I can just use this card instead of the standard debit card without even ever touching crypto. But on every transaction in store, on every coffee I buy, I make anywhere between 0.5% and 1.5% cash back in Bitcoin. Just doing nothing, just using pretty much funding it with my standard card and just taking the benefit of it. And that's kind of the price would be.
Let's dig into that before you do, because that sounds really interesting. So why would somebody take money on a card and put it on their Wirex card with no conversion? Why would they do that?
For a person who already holds some crypto, the answer is pretty obvious. It allows you to spend it instantly, very easily. Like, you don't have to go to an exchange, to wait for the bank transfer to come through, to get several different accounts here and there. It's just one process, one app. You get verified in a few seconds. You can you order the card, you get it within a few days, and that's it. You can start topping it up with your existing crypto holdings. You just deposit them into your wallet on Wirex system in whatever currency you're using, Bitcoin or Ethereum.
If I've got dollars and you said you can connect to a traditional
so that's the use case for a crypto holder, enthusiast, whatever you call the person. Now, if you're just if you're an ordinary user, you don't know or don't want to know about cryptocurrencies, you can still benefit from it, use it as your day-to-day cards, and at the same time get the cashback that you don't get elsewhere, because it's unconditional. It's not linked to any particular merchants. It's not like you do this, you do that. Just any transaction you make, you get cashback. And for us, it's a cost, but it's a tool to bring the traditional user, the mainstream person who may not yet be familiar with the world of cryptocurrencies, and then one day they may look at their wallet and see how many satoshis Satoshi is one small fraction of Bitcoin, how many of those they have earned by virtually doing nothing, and then convert it any second and buy themselves something nice. And then they may get interested, or what is it, and start looking into it closer. So it's kind of a tool to make it attractive to an everyday user.
Okay, that's incredible. So you can take the debit card, you can use it just as you would. Now, is there a mechanism in the background that makes the cashback work, or is just simply your marketing budget that you're allocating to people?
Well, it's both. There is a complex mechanism. So when each transaction happens, the user receives the Bitcoin in their wallet instantly. And that's kind of connecting the traditional finance and card ecosystem with the crypto and blockchain. But the expense comes out of the marketing budget eventually. But we see this as a valuable investment in the future, and people who hold a bigger amount of our own project token, the utility token, we have Wirex token, they get a higher amount of cashback, and it's a good loyalty mechanism. So think of it as just a loyalty scheme that attracts people. And we generally see that people who earn more cashback, they tend to earn more, they tend to refer more friends and family members. So it's kind of a bit of a viral dynamic there.
Yeah. I mean, it's just a great way of getting people into crypto, because one of the hardest things is buying crypto. Now, while Wyrex has got a solution to that, but if you earn crypto, it's always been the best way, because once you've got it, you then, if it becomes worth something in the future, you get very interested in finding out how you can use it. And it's really like a long-term thing. So that's great. I believe that you were one of the first licenses you secured was with the FCA, the regulator in the UK. Now, you guys were really early in the industry. And you must have been one of the very early companies that the FCA would have actually looked at. Could you help us understand what that was like at the time, and how you eventually got through that?
Well, we still are one of the very few. There's only a handful of companies that deal with crypto and have the license. So it's essentially what makes us different from 99% of companies in the crypto space. And then the crypto functionality is what makes us different from all the traditional neobanks, so to say. It was not an easy process, definitely not. It took us anywhere between a year and a half from the idea of giving it a try and actually getting the license. We got the license in August 2018. And at the time, it was company number 3 who got the license globally, pretty much, with the UK regulator, which is very progressive, but definitely not an easy one, right? they do their job at doing the due diligence and making sure that you operate with to the best standards possible in the industry. So yeah, back in the days when we started, it was a lot easier than it is now. We could use the same card issuer to serve customers in 130 countries and not worry about the rest. Then times changed. And now in every region where we operate or want to enter, we have to seek local partnerships, local licenses, local bank accounts and banking relationships. So it's become a lot more complicated. Whether we like it or not, regulation is not becoming easier in the financial space. And there are good reasons for that, right? It's a big cost to us, but at the same time, it's the necessary thing to bring more trust into the space and to eventually allow the benefits of cryptocurrencies, of blockchain technology overall to go mainstream rather than just remain a niche solution for forever. So it took us about, as I said, a year and a half to get the license. That included lots of different things. So being an e-money institution, which we are, essentially, if you simplify it, it's almost the same as a bank from the point of view of what you have to do, what you have to comply with. And the only difference is from a full banking license is that you can't give loans officially, and you can't take deposits with interest. Other than that, it's pretty much same regulations, same rules, same requirements as for a bank. But unlike a bank that can have just a tenth of their reserves, a tenth of the capital in reserves, and then 10x what they can loan to customers, for an e-money institution, it's always exactly one-to-one. All customer funds are held in segregated accounts. So God forbid something happens to the company, clients' funds are always sitting in separate segregated accounts, separated from the company funds. So whatever happens, all the funds are there. That's the reason they're not part of the of that government insurance scheme, simply for the reason you don't need to insure it because there's no 10 times as much loan issued as it is in the case of the bank. So here it's exactly one-to-one, and all the funds simply go back to the customers should something happen to the company. But that being said, because we deal with crypto and we have an e-money license, we sometimes feel that we are watched even closer than a bank, because we're under this huge magnifying glass the whole time, because it's a new concept for the regulators themselves. They are learning together with us, and in many cases it feels like to every new meeting the regulator brings new people so that they want them to learn on us and give them their due. UKFCA are very progressive on that front. They have the sandbox. They are not there are a lot of risk associated with this industry, right? And their job is not an easy one, but they are smart and progressive enough not to just say, no, you can't do anything and stop everything and not let the progress happen. They take the calculated risk. They allow you to operate at a smaller scale. They check it, they see, they make sure everything goes right. They test it at small scale, then they allow you to go to bigger scale. So it's not always as fast as we would want it to be. And often we have to invest a lot of resources. And as we were talking on yesterday's call with existing investors, sometimes you end up having to invest a lot of resources into adding something to the product that users don't notice, or even worse, that they notice as something actually deteriorating the customer experience, but that's something that we absolutely have to introduce in order to comply. But yeah, that's part of the process. We have to do it to stay compliant. On the other hand, it brings, as I mentioned, it brings more trust, and it makes it safer for people to give it a try, and it ensures that ill-minded players don't enter the industry, and so in the end, it's for the better. Although there are certainly things on regulatory front I personally probably wouldn't agree with, but yeah, it's
Okay.
always fine balance.
Yeah. Certainly know that one. I've been on that for when we started in 2010. It took us approximately 3 years, and this was even before the FCA was called the FCA. They used to be called the FSA, and we had to do lots of education around the venture capital industry and how it could work online. After 3 years, they decided to make some changes, and interestingly, the changes that were made in the UK were actually the foundation of what President Obama picked up with the Jobs Act in 2012, that then led to the entire world changing securities laws, and that was all a result of those early conversations that we were having with the FSA at the time around that. So small changes from innovative companies can actually go on to change the world. So I'm sure it's hard work, but everyone else benefits from it afterwards, and we get a more competitive landscape like we're seeing now in the industry. Another incredible achievement that Wyrex went through is, I guess, a controversial one, but also a strategic one. Is that you actually ended up with one of the largest banks in the world in Japan actually becoming investors in the company. So our shareholders, because we were early investors, when SBI ended up investing, there was a generous offer for 10 times the original investment. The voting shareholders decided to decline the offer, but you secured investment with one of the largest banks in Japan. Now, SBI is a very interesting bank because they've got a very diverse portfolio in the industry, and they're doing all sorts of progressive things like mining Bitcoin, investing in mining. So help us share a bit of the story about how the SBI investment came around. What was the process like in terms of due diligence, and was there any cultural shocks between a bank and a payment service provider operating in the crypto space?
Well, they're not necessarily just a bank. They're a big player in the fintech space, probably the biggest in Japan. And just for people who don't know who SBI are, SBI stands for SoftBank Investments. So it's pretty much a branch of the bigger SoftBank group, but focused not on the huge venture investments. I think they are dealing just with north of 100 million, whatever the Ubers, the Airbnbs, the Wirex of this world. But SBI goes into they look at smaller companies specifically focused on fintech. It started by us being invited to take part in a startup contest in Tokyo back in, I think it was 2016, where we were lucky or smart, a bit of combination of both, probably enough to get the first place. And the prize was the investment. Then there was a bit of a negotiation, and yeah, rightly so. There is a bit of a cultural element there because it's two very, very different business environments. I used to work with Japan quite a lot in my previous career in aviation, so I kind of knew what it is. But our CEOs at the time, Pavel and Dmitry, they had to travel to Japan. Like Pavel almost got settled there at the time. It required quite a lot of travel and a lot of meetings, a lot of bowing and business cards exchanges. So yeah, the cultural element is there certainly, but it's also very interesting. It's a super interesting country, both from point of view of just visiting and seeing the culture as just an individual as well as a businessman. So yeah, it was a huge achievement for us at the time, and they remain on board. We talk on pretty much regular basis. They might participate in future rounds. Yeah, so far it's been a good partnership, and because they are quite strong in the space, that was the reason why we established our first office outside of London, where we have the headquarters, and Kiev in Ukraine, where we have the research and development center. All the developers and customer support and designers, testers, you name it, they're all based there. Tokyo was the third place where we had our office. And at one point, Japan was our biggest market. Probably about 30% of cards and all the transactions were going to Japan. We have been working on getting a license there since then, once the requirements came in place, and it's extremely difficult process, but we will get there. Our man on the ground there is an extremely talented individual. We have our Kojima-san in Tokyo, very professional guy from fintech, and he is dealing with the FSA. And yeah, it's happening the Japanese way. So you apply for a license, you wait for half a year, you get 400 questions to clarify. You clarify them, you get another 120, and yeah, each iteration takes time. They are also progressive, but they're also traditional. And if for people who are in the crypto space, there was a set of big exchange hacks that happened in Japan, I think, what was it, early 2018, and that slowed down the process quite a lot, because historically Japan was probably #1 country in the world in terms of being how progressive they were in adopting cryptocurrencies. They were the first one to essentially call it money, right? And that's where all the growth started. But then after those exchange hacks were quite substantial amounts were, people lost money, they became a lot more careful, and for like a year almost nothing was happening. It's now in the process of moving, and Wyrex is at the top 10 of a couple hundred of existing applications for a full license there. We got our Type 2 license, which is essentially the final step before getting the full Type 1 license with the Japanese FSA, and hopefully we'll get there this year and be able to relaunch.
Yeah, I do remember one of my last trips to Japan. I actually went to visit the CoinCheck office, and this was before the hack. But I also met Wirex. I spoke at a local Bitcoin meetup, and there were representatives from the Wirex team, and it was really a very established brand in the space in Japan. So it was really interesting to see that, because I hadn't caught up with how fast you were growing at that stage, and that really made me want to get some catch-ups on how you've been growing. And let's not also forget that Tokyo had the famous 2013 hack with Mt. Gox as well. So
yeah, well, that was before our times, thankfully.
Yeah. So share with you. So you said it was 3 guys in a garage with a laptop, or the classic story, and now you've got approximately 200 people around the globe. Share us some of your stories around taking it from 3 people to now 200, where it is. What were some of the things that you had to really learn along that journey in order to manage such a large global team?
Yeah, when just started, it was 3 or however many guys with a laptop, plus there were some freelancers on, what was it, I think Odesk or whatever the freelancer website was called, and we had 1 or 2 team members, the hardcore developer guys in Kiev, Ukraine. At the time, we were able to find someone who had some relevant experience in the space. And yeah, I think the first time we visited physically was in early 2015, and at the time it wasn't even an office, it was just a rented flats in the outskirts of Kiev, where there were a couple guys and a couple of computers, and they had also like a separate room with a barbell and a bench press, because the guy was a big fan of working out. And so, yeah, very modest beginning. And then later on in the year, it was already an office, and then the investment came through, and yeah, it kept growing. Now we have over 150 people there. Big office. Well, obviously now no one in that office, everyone working from home, which was a switch for us, but I wouldn't say it was extremely difficult, because, you know, in this space, it was, yeah, we made the decision to move people to work from home before the official requirements came in place. But overall, yeah, it was an interesting process of growth, not without falls, with quite a lot of falls, and there were many times when we were very low on the, you know, on the cyclic graph. It's always about people in every business. So that guy who was in that department in the outskirts of Kiev, he's still with us. He's the, you know, the head of backend, and holds a lot of experience, and trains a lot of new people, and it's a matter of building the right team. And it's like that everywhere. In London, our team is super diverse. Like, I wouldn't be able to count the number of nationalities that are there. It's very interesting. And then in smaller regional offices, the approach we take is we get some business development people, and probably even before the business development people these days, you have to get compliance people on the ground locally. And yeah, so we start very small in new regions, and we don't necessarily want to have big operation here and there. Yeah.
Okay.
Power of every business is in the people. So
yeah, certainly. For me, though, I got more questions we can go into, but is there some from the audience we want to take at this stage?
Yes, definitely there are.
Okay.
I'm going to show my face. Hello. Yeah, such an interesting journey, really. I'm an early adopter. I used your wallet way back in the day. Just really nice to see the user experience has changed so nicely. Very nice, smooth user experience. Been chatting to some of the people in live chat, and they've been asking some questions that I've actually been able to answer because I'm a user.
Cool. Did you have a Bitcoin card for me, though, or a Wirex one?
I think I had both. Yeah, I've still got the old one. Yeah, and then I got the slick Wirex new card, which was cool. Yeah. Okay, so some of the questions are more basically about the user experience, because I think a lot of the people that I've joined today aren't actually using Wirex, but would like to know a lot more about the user experience of it. So a lot of the questions are, so how can you load it up? How do you get crypto? What cryptos are available right now? How does the exchange work? I don't know if you can go into a little bit about the user experience of that.
Sure. Well, firstly, it's different by region. The full functionality that we have is available in Europe. It's almost as full in a number of Asia-Pacific countries. And then later in the year, we'll be launching in the US. And in some countries, it's just the crypto wallets. In some countries, it's crypto wallets plus the ability to top it up with your normal card. So I'll give an example for Europe, for example. So I get the account. Let's say I get a GBP, British pound card. I get the account number and sort code, just as with any neobank or traditional bank. You can get your salary paid into this account if you want to, although we don't explicitly tell people to hold all their savings with Wirex. It's a payment platform, so we probably recommend to keep your spending amounts with us, and then the rest keep it with the bank if you prefer. But you can top it up just as you would transfer money into an ordinary UK bank account via fast transfer, instant and free. If it's a euro account, it's SEPA, pretty much the same, a little bit slower, but still free and relatively fast. So that's a way to fund your account. Or you can fund it by linking any card you have to the app. Before you you verify it with 3D Secure, the amount is limited. It's all
that kind of like PayPal, right?
Similar,
like,
yeah. Like linking your card to Uber or to whatever app in your phone. So you link the card, and from there on, you can top up using whatever card. To make sure it's safe, we use 3D Secure, we use two-factor authentication, all those leading edge security methods, like best practices in fintech. So options to top it up within the existing and familiar financial systems are quite abundant. And then if you want to top it up via crypto, then it probably doesn't need much explanation. You have your wallets. Again, the number of currencies available differs by region. In Europe, it's, I think, what is it, about 10. The main ones, the Bitcoin, Litecoin, Ethereum, and Ripple of this world. And then we've got a number of others. We've got DAI stablecoin, we've got Nano, we've got Stellar Lumens, we've got our own Wirex token. So it's not that like 100 or 200 selection like it is on exchanges, but all the major ones are covered. And then also you've got a number of fiat accounts. In Europe, it's up to 10 different currencies. It's like GBP, euros, Swiss franc, a number of those. We constantly work on adding more. And yeah, then once you've topped up your account, you just either hold it there in crypto wallet, or you convert it into fiat and put it on your card. So from there on, it's we try to have as many explanatory videos as possible. We have a 24-hour support team working in Ukraine, so you can create a ticket via email, or you can talk to them in live chat. So we try to stay in line with all the neobanks. And yeah, it's not easy. People's expectations are growing, but it's a good thing. So everyone is getting a better service in the end.
Yeah, so on the website, anyone can find the information about what countries are not accepted.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, so like Australia?
Australia is possible. Yeah, you can get an account there. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. And you mentioned about the spend and then get Bitcoin. Mm-hmm. So how does that work?
Every time you swipe or tap your cards in an offline location, so that works for in-store transactions. Second after you make the transaction, you get a notification on your phone how many satoshis you've made on that transaction. So we pay you straight away, and it's a bit of a revolution in the whole reward space. Mm-hmm. Because if you look into the statistics, it's a bit shocking, but it's true. About 90% of all rewards, and we're talking air miles, we're talking various loyalty points, bonuses, whatever. About 90% of all of that remains unspent ever, because people just have so many of these cards, and there's so many conditions on how you earn it, how you spend it, that it's just too much to be bothered about, right? In our case, you get it instantly in your account, and you can either keep it waiting for Bitcoin to grow, or you can convert it to traditional currency and spend it next second. There's no limitation. It's completely unconditional. The only condition there is if you want to earn more, then you can hold more of Wirex token, and that allows you to earn up to 1.5% rather than just the standard 0.5%.
That is pretty cool. I mean, you also had the recommendation link as well. I'm not sure if you're still doing that. Is it affiliate sort of link or something, and then get Bitcoin in return, right?
That's quite traditional.
That was your earliest one. That was the earliest benefit that I remember.
If you're happy with the product, if you refer your friends, you can both yourself and the person you refer, you can get paid. And yeah, it's proven to be quite a good marketing tool. We don't spend much on marketing. We prefer it to be organic.
Nice. So I have a comment from Darren Allison saying, I hope they are adding more cryptocurrency to the platform. #DigiByte would be a game changer for you.
DigiByte is a very active community, and yeah, we talk to them every now and then. As much as we would like to have all of them, it's always a case of prioritizing the resources. Integrating any new blockchain is a resource-consuming exercise. That's just the IT part of it, right? And then we start talking about regulatory side of it, which is getting more and more difficult by day. There's more and more requirements from regulators to have transaction monitoring. And whereas it's already possible with the major cryptocurrencies, with the tools that we have integrated, it's not possible with every single one of the smaller ones in particular. So yeah, we keep an eye on what's going on, and we constantly try to add new currencies, but yeah, it's baby steps, one at a time. And not only as I mentioned, it's not only the IT side, it's also the regulatory side that we have to take into account. But yeah, we try to do as much as we can.
It suddenly dawned upon me that we don't have our affiliate link, and all these people are going to get. You should have the affiliate link below the video, right?
It's a user-to-user affiliate link, but I mean, if we can do it as Bank to the Future, I don't know.
You can, yeah, you can register as professional affiliate, and then apart from pretty much the same conditions that you would. So the refer a friend is more for this friends community. So it's not like you do it on industrial scale, right? You tell your friends, you tell your relatives, whatever. If you are a professional affiliate company or a partner, you can do the same. There's a bit of a like you need to register just to make sure we have your account details and know where to pay the rewards to. But what it gives you is all the analytical tools. So you can see how many people came, how many people performed this or that action. So it gives you all the transparency.
Yeah,
that's great.
We'll stick to our shareholding growth, hopefully. But yeah, we haven't got the affiliate.
You can do both. Yeah. At least you know, even for us to give the transparency to see how much it's actually whether it's working or not.
Is it just a one-time Bitcoin payment for one each? So it's just per user that joins because of your recommendation.
Yeah, I mean, what it is at the time, it's when you make your first card transaction, it's like $5 in Bitcoin paid both parties. And when you make your first purchase of crypto, it's also that. Again, it differs by region depending on what services are available in each particular geography. But we are looking to pay more attention to that, potentially realign those awards somehow to see what makes it more interesting for people because, you know, for some people, it's not that easy to understand, or in this or that country, you simply can't get rewarded for ordering a card because you don't have the card available. So we will be experimenting with this more in the future.
Yeah, cool. A couple more, Simon, if that's okay.
Yeah, go for it. You're doing a better job than me.
It's because I'm a user.
I'm not going to be here in the next one.
So JW Lee has said thank you for doing this AMA. So thanks, Simon, and thank you, Grigory. So JW Lee has said, do you have any plans to expand to the Asia market like Korea? Or Wyrex does not accept Korea won, for example?
Now, moving into a new country and supporting a local currency, those are two different things, not necessarily always the same. So in Korea, you can actually get a Wirex account. You cannot, there's not yet, there's no support for Korean won. But if you use the app, you can already convert all the currencies at interbank rates, which effectively means it's the same rate that banks use when, big banks use when they transact between each other. And we are democratizing that and just passing this on to ordinary users. So you can get a Wirex account in Korea, and you can buy or sell crypto or exchange, and you will be getting interbank rates when you exchange fiat currencies as well.
But they'd have to do an international transfer. So they'd have to go, if they were doing a bank transfer, they'd have to go to their bank and say, put some dollars or euros or pounds here, and then, or could they just send the Korean won and it would automatically convert?
If I remember right, there's not yet, like, users in Korea can't get the bank account details yet. But if we're talking about people who work with crypto, then nothing stops you from topping up the account in cryptocurrencies and then exchange it in any direction.
Okay, so they could go to their local Korean won exchange, get some Bitcoin, top it up, and then use all the...
Yeah.
So what does that mean for if somebody wanted to use TransferWise? And also, is that part of laundering? Would that be flagged up like, oh, this is a very strange transaction?
No, it wouldn't actually. And something interesting we see that people who use crypto, they just happen to be quite well versed in fintech in general. And a lot of people who have a Wirex card, they would know what TransferWise are, and they would also have a Revolut card or a Utrip account in Asia, if we talk in Asia. And we see that some of those services are actually quite popular as merchants that our cards are used with. So the good dynamics we see in Europe, for example, is that more and more, well, at least before the pandemic times, when all the face-to-face card transactions dropped quite a lot, we used to see that the biggest merchants are the likes of McDonald's or Transport for London or Sainsbury's. So people use it as their day-to-day card, which is really good. But another cohort of merchants that people use the cards with is the Revoluts and TransferWises and Utrips of this world. So people become a lot more finance savvy. They look for the best rates, and it's all part of the game.
Okay, so actually going on from that, Georgy, I don't know if you can answer this or if Simon can answer this, but in terms of like tax, so you're holding fiat and you're holding crypto and you're holding tokens in Wirex, like how does this work with somebody who's not tax registered or has got like a full-time job and that taxes are being done by their company, but is this like having property, then you have to register as somebody who's got property, or somebody who's selling property or whatever? How does this work?
Yeah, I'll give it a go. So I don't live in the UK anymore, but this is country specific. So when I did live in the UK, there was an organization called UK Digital Currency Association. Actually, Adam Vaziri, who's a regular here, he was one of the founding directors, and myself there. And we had to consult HMRC, and they gave the first official tax document on how to treat Bitcoin. And it was as ambiguous then as it is today. But essentially they said, if you're using it as a currency, then it's taxed as a currency. If you receive your income in it, then it's taxed as income. But if you hold it as an investment, then it's subject to capital gains and taxed as an investment. So they went for, it's the essence of how you're using it in terms of the tax treatment. Now, other countries have got very specific with exactly what it is. So that is a country specific question, but my guess would be is that if you're using a Wirex card, then really you can make the case for you're using this as a currency. Now, if you're holding Bitcoin and you held it there for like 5 years, it was worth loads of money, then you start spending it. There's a risk you'd need to speak to your tax advisor about whether there's some capital gains you're meant to be playing there. But the danger in this is, unfortunately, this is something you have to get your local tax advice on. And that was just a UK framework, but every country is treating it slightly differently. What's your experience been, Georgy?
Yeah, it's a very country-specific question, and it doesn't relate just to cryptocurrencies. It relates to like anyone using several solutions like that. Well, as soon as you go over your one standard bank account, which is pretty easy to manage and control, it becomes a difficult process. So you either have to talk to a professional advisor on that, or just to make sure you file your own taxes. Well, we're fortunately not a tax advisor. We just provide the service. What's the trend is that we've been seeing in the space, there are a number of players, number of companies that start to provide the tools for people to be able to at least to make sense out of all their crypto transactions, and they are certified with each particular tax authority in any given country. So by using those, you take your list of transactions, you upload it into their system, and they create a report for you that you can then try and make sense of and file to the tax authorities to do your own taxes. We just haven't had enough resources to integrate any of such solutions, but that's definitely an item on the agenda, and we will try at least for the next tax year to implement something like that to make people's lives easier. Because we although it's not our responsibility, it's each person's responsibility to deal with their own taxes, but we want to make it easy for people, or at least easier, as easy as it can be. So we will try to implement one of those solutions, or integrate, or at least partner with some of them, and allow people to to download all your transaction lists from Wirex, so that they can use those tools to create reports and make their lives easier.
It's perfect. I mean, you guys do receipts anyways, but that a downloadable transaction list would be awesome for somebody concerned about taxes. So I have one more, Simon. Sorry. So JW Lee, why can we not pay with Wirex tokens in a convenience store?
Technically speaking, you can. So you just top up your card with the Wirex token instead of Bitcoin, or instead of bank transfer from your UK account. So yes, you can. Now, why can you not pay directly? It's pretty much the same as why you cannot pay in Bitcoin or in any other cryptocurrencies. It's a beautiful technology with lots of benefits, but it's still not at the level of adoption where we want it to be, probably. And that's actually one of the problems we're solving. So essentially, there are two ways to it. You can either go and try and convince every single merchant to start accepting Bitcoins. That was our thinking back in 2015 when we launched the first card, which is a very difficult task. Or you can approach it differently and use the existing rails, the already familiar and trusted tool of a debit card, to allow people to spend cryptocurrency where it's not yet accepted. So we gave people the tool. So we looked at it from the consumer end, not from the merchant end. And then hopefully, slowly, little by little, it will give more better sense of security of dealing with cryptocurrencies directly. Now, another reason why merchants may not be interested or be cautious to accept cryptocurrencies directly is the volatility, right? You accept Bitcoin or Wirex token, which is not linked to any particular traditional currency, which just fluctuates with the market rates. And as a merchant, you can gain or you can lose, but you just can't afford that volatility, right? And then we've seen a lot of development in the stablecoin space recently, which is kind of a combination of the best features of both. So you get all the benefits of blockchain technology, which allows you to transfer it very fast and very cheaply, compared to sending £5 via Swift to Singapore and paying £30 to make that transfer and waiting 3 or 4 days. Now with stable coins, you can do it in a matter of minutes or even seconds, and really at a fraction of cost. And that's actually one of the next big things that we're working on. We're building our own stable coins on Stellar blockchain, which allows for super fast and extremely cheap transactions. So consider it free. And then you could send that same £5 to your friend in Singapore and have them buy a beer with a Wirex card there. And you would not have to wait for several days for that, or pay £30 or whatever. We charge a lot less than a high street bank for a Swift transfer, but it still doesn't make sense to use it to send a small amount cross borders. So once stable coins get more adoption, that would probably change, and merchants will start seeing the benefits, because it's a lot more cost effective. It's a lot, there's no chargebacks. There's no requirements for holding big reserves, because not everyone understands that. But when the merchant is using the traditional card network, they only receive the money for the good they sell today, sometime between 2 and 3 weeks later, right? And that increases the requirement for their capital, and especially for small merchants, it's a big cost to the business. So there's a lot of benefit that blockchain technology can bring there.
Yeah, I think we should introduce the Wirex guys to the coin payments guys as well. So one of our other portfolio companies. So anyone can accept BnkToTheFuture tokens at their stores using coin payments. And I think we should get Wirex token on there. What's the blockchain? Is it an ERC20?
Well, we support different blockchains. So at the moment, the only stable coin on the platform is DAI, which is an ERC20 one on Ethereum. But Wirex token and Wirex stable coins, they're on Stellar. Stellar is, we see it as
not Stella the drink, right?
Not Stellar the drink, no.
Carry on.
Yeah, Stellar is the best blockchain we could see for payments. That the whole they allow not just for the infrastructure for sending and receiving funds very fastly and very fast and very cheaply, but also they provide all the underlying infrastructure. You could pass KYC data on blockchain. You can do a lot of different things. So the big ambition Stellar have as a project is become the next generation standard for payments, like the Swift of the future, if I may. And yeah, they're supporting us and we're supporting them on that mission.
Okay, I think we've come to 1 hour. Is there any more for me though, or we call it wraps there?
Yeah, we're good. We're good. Thank you so much.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much for getting those questions out for me. That was really useful. And thank you for sharing the story of Wyrex. We look forward to following the next. So I think we've been with you for 5 years of growth, and we look forward to seeing the next 5 years of growth. I think as an organization, you still got a lot further to go. You seem to be doing things in the right way. And yeah, can't wait to see where this actually goes next. So thank you. Thank you, Simon. And yes, it's challenging, but the plans are big. Yeah, there are big things coming in Europe. There are big things coming in the US. Yeah, stay tuned and look forward to bringing more news and good news. Okay, so that's going to do it for episode 61 of Bank to the Future Live. As we said, in the weeks ahead, probably next week, we're going to be launching the secondary market for Wyrex. And last week we did a video where we went through everything you need to know about the secondary market, where we picked up all your questions, so you can understand exactly how it works, what the structure is, you know, the special company that owns the shares, the underlying shares, and everything you need to know. So make sure you check out episode 60 of Bank to the Future Live for everything you need to know about the secondary market. And that's going to do it for episode 61 of Bank to the Future Live. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.